Hello, everyone. This is Dean on the scene, Dean Rogers, and welcome to the latest edition of The Interview. It's the feature that talks to people who make the entertainment world go round. Our guest today has been boldly going where few have gone before. As a young man, he has often attended Star Trek conventions with his mother, just like me. And later in life, he and his future wife were classmates at the Juilliard School Drama Division, along with Discovery cast member Mary Chieffo. Since then, he has played the Andorian during the third season of Star Trek Discovery. He has ran this amazing D&D campaign for Discovery cast members, which we will talk about later. He and his wife, Mary Wiseman, from Discovery, has just celebrated their third wedding anniversary not too long ago. And just a few days ago, he has launched a Kickstarter for his new short film, Type 1, which in under 24 hours has surpassed its goal of $25,000. Yes, I am not making this up, folks. It is real. And as of this taping, it's almost reached its double. Friends of the Fleet, ladies and gentlemen, we have Noah Averbach-Katz. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Dean. Boy, when you put it all like that, I've been busy, man.
Well, I have to be envious, and I have to tell you something before we start our amazing talk. We actually met at the Jersey convention back in the fall last year. And the craziest thing is I was talking about Starship Farragut, and you actually wrote on a picture, which I have here.
Let me see.
From Helmsman. Oh, let me turn off the. That's right. Oh, let's see if we can get that. Hopefully, there it is.
There you go.
From Helmsman to Navigator. You wrote that to me.
Did I spell anything wrong in there?
No, you got everything right. And
that's amazing, Dean.
And the funny thing is, I told you one day I would like to interview you, and here we are.
There we go. There we go. Amazing. Well, that is fantastic, Dean. Thank you.
It is amazing. So first, we got to get off the hot presses. Type 1, just launched 3 days ago, reached its $25,000 goal. And I want you to tell us what led for you to write this amazing short story we're about to see.
Gosh, boy, that is such a big, it's a lot of different things. I was doing a play in Baltimore, and there was an amazing deaf actor in this show, Trishelle Edmonds. And I was just struck, kind of she sort of was very gracious and sort of letting us into the little deaf community that was sort of around the show. And then that sort of gave a window to the larger deaf community. And it just made me think about the disabled community at large, and also the diabetes community. And, one of the things I was struck with was how the deaf community really had a real community behind it, and they all sort of had, all understood the same things about their community. And the diabetes community is so fractured, there aren't any single places where everybody congregates, where everybody understands the same things. And even with the internet, there's little pockets around here. And along with that, there aren't really, there's not a lot of type 1, especially, there's not a lot of diabetes, and especially type 1 diabetes media out there for people to sort of congregate around, to flock to see themselves in. And when it has been in media, it has been sort of as a plot point. In Con Air, it's a plot point. In The Walking Dead, it's a plot point, and it's changed slowly. There are better representations, but a lot of the time those representations feel very instructive in a way that is very much not for the type 1 crowd. It's for people who want to learn about it. And so I was thinking, I was in this play, and in this play I had like large amounts of downtime on stage where I was just laying on the floor because I was playing a dog. I was thinking, what could be something that sort of bridges this gap that is really something that type 1 folks or diabetic folks could really see themselves in, but that also that doesn't alienate people who aren't type 1. And I just sort of came up with this idea because there's this family joke with Mary's family. They're obsessed with sort of zombie apocalypse stuff. And I'm like, well, look, guys, like if the zombies are coming, I'm the guy who's like, go on, I'll hold them off. Like, I know I'm going to die here, but like, I'm screwed, And I thought, well, like, what can I maybe like develop this into a short? And then that was in February of 2020. And then March of 2020, I was in New York, and everything sort of shut down, and the reality of not being able to acquire, both for diabetics and anybody who needed prescription medication, and not being able to acquire the things you needed became very real. And so, trapped in this tiny little apartment we were in at the time, I just, over a few days, maybe a month, a week or two, I can't even really remember, I just put the story down on paper, and that was kind of it. And this story of a type 1 diabetic man and his wife sort of leaving behind some sort of disaster, searching for what they hope is like a cachet of insulin so that they can keep going, became type 1.
That is amazing to hear about that. And it's a great story. And to let you know, I'm a type 2 diabetic. I just became a diabetic, actually, surprisingly, at the start of the pandemic.
Oh, well, welcome to the club.
Thank you. Yeah, so when I read about your tale, it's like, this is something that's never been told before. And I'm glad that you became the voice about it. And when I read, you became a T1D for 20 years. And this is a great story to share. And you're right, it's so often, it's usually used as a plot point, or it's almost like the killer did because he had type 1. And I want you to talk about how were you able to take this story that sometimes in the media world was a negative plot point and decide to make it a really positive aspect for a change?
Yeah, I think it, what I'm sort of hoping to do with the movie, alongside just like telling a really compelling and interesting and new story, is also sort of tie it into the insulin pricing crisis in the United States, which affects both type 1s and type 2s who use liquid insulin, and just sort of give people a window into what it really could be like to ration insulin, what it could really feel like to not know where you're going to get the insulin that you need to stay alive. And again, doing that in a way that is dramatized, that is a bit removed from, our day-to-day reality. So like a show like Star Trek or, other sort of sci-fi shows, if it's just removed a little bit, it feels like you can step into it a little bit more and not feel like you're being bombarded or taught to, in a way, trying to trick people into feeling like, oh, I can really put myself in this situation. Yes. And so that was sort of my thought when it came to trying to tell this story, that it's not just about people walking through a woods or just telling a story. There is that sort of meaning to it of giving folks who either have had to go through insulin rationing, who haven't known where their next dose of insulin is going to come from, or for folks like me who have been very privileged and lucky, but still live with the fear that you are one or two steps wrong, mistakes or accidents or just some bad luck, or, things like in the world that are completely out of your control, from not having access to insulin anymore, and putting that out there. So, folks who live with this and have lived with it really can see themselves in it. And folks who are new to it can feel like immediately connected to this kind of story.
I agree. And from the support of your Kickstarter, the support has really shown. In fact, this is the first time I actually had to do this in an interview, but I want to share some statistics with our readers, with our listeners, about type 1 diabetes in general. So here, folks, here are some information you need to know. In 2019, 37.3 million Americans, or 11.3% of the population, has diabetes. Nearly 1.9 million have type 1, including about 244,000 children and adolescents, and it is the 7th leading cause of death. So the more you know, folks. There's that moment.
Yeah, it's interesting because both type 1 and type 2, almost everybody knows somebody who is affected by it, but at the same time, it's such both type 1 and type 2. And personally, I don't really like to speak on type 2, not because it's there's anything wrong with that, but just it's not the disease I do. So I don't really like to speak for them, for people with type 2 like yourself. But just in general, from my experience with type 1, it's such a complicated disease. It can also be such a stigmatized disease as well that it can feel very difficult for people who aren't diabetic to ask for information, to get information, to understand what is really going on there, and to sort of sift through all of the all of the baggage, all of the things that you just inherently think are true through inaccurate or unhelpful portrayals that you may have seen, or tropes. So, hopefully this will give just a fresh look. Maybe it might not say, oh, I understand what it's like to be a diabetic now, but it will say, okay, maybe the things that I thought I knew about diabetes or about type 1 diabetes, maybe those aren't actually super accurate, and it's okay to reevaluate them. And, one of the things I've tried to make myself, tried to do is make myself super available to people to ask questions, to say, I don't really understand this. What is this thing? Can you tell me what this is? And so, hopefully along with this movie will come with that feeling of like, I have further questions and I know where to go after this as well.
Absolutely. And along the same lines, what are some of the most stigmas that type 1 diabetics or even type 2 had to face or had to deal with? Since I know I'm new to it for 3 years now, and I'm still trying to get used to it. So what are some of the stigmas they faced?
Well, I think in general, when you talk about the word diabetes, sort of clumping in type 1 and type 2 diabetics, I think there's a lot of shame and blame around whatever, healthiness, around weight, around choices, which, one, are not necessarily accurate, and two, are definitely not helpful when it comes to treating people with the disease and for people to get help with the disease. Any sort of baggage or shame or stigmas like that, it just doesn't help people to live healthy lives. And it also, even within the medical profession, any kind of judgment or stigma as well that is brought to the table as well, it just doesn't help people to stay healthy. For type 1s, there's less of that classic like stigmas attached and more of a lot of confusion, which can lead to people making wrong assumptions about what we need to stay alive. So, whether that's through saying, oh, you can't eat that, you can't do this, which is just a misunderstanding, or if that's from people not understanding what to do in an emergency situation. You hear these horror stories of people giving insulin when they don't need anymore, which can obviously be very dangerous. It also just sort of extends to like the greater disability community and how disabled people are as a whole, how they're treated. My experiences here in America, so how they're treated in the United States. And I think, something like COVID has really made it very clear to a lot of disabled people that a lot of individuals and a lot of systems don't care about whether they live or die. And that's a really challenging thing to have to grapple with. And I've experienced that, and I know, other diabetics have experienced that, and I know a lot of disabled people have experienced that. So that's something that comes up as well. And then, of course, and then above all that is healthcare and people's access to healthcare, and sort of the sway that the pharmaceutical industry has, particularly over insulin. But again, this extends to so many different corners of the disabled community. And in terms of statistic, 1 in 4 Americans are disabled. So it is a massive, massive community who is affected by these things. It's not, this small little niche group who's raising their hand and whatever. It's 1/4 of Americans.
It is indeed. You're right about that. Amazing. And we still got a long way to go, but I have a feeling with your film and the knowledge that we carry, we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Well, my hope with something like this is like, it starts a conversation, and I'm in conversations with disabled films and disabled creators that have come before me, so hopefully this is just another step on the road, with a film like Coda getting nominated for all these Oscars is super exciting. And I owe a huge amount to those films and a ton of other disabled forward films, and especially disabled creators, people out there who have done a lot of work educating people and have done a lot of labor when it comes to really pushing the conversation away from sort of basically Victorian era ideals about what it means to be disabled into the 21st century. Are we in the 22nd century now? I forgot.
I don't know. We
into the future, into this future. How about that? I watched too much Star Trek, so I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Hey, you and me both. We're stuck in Star Trek world. What can we say? And speaking of Star Trek, how did you know that Anthony Rapp, the wonderful Anthony Rapp, was the right person to direct this piece and help you tell this tale?
Oh man, well, it's just so synergistic. That's such a dumb word now, but it just is like, it just couldn't be more perfect. Here we are, I've wrote this script. Mary's really excited about it. I'm really excited about it. My little community is really excited about it. And I start playing D&D with Anthony, and we, hit it off, and I'm playing in his home game, and we just get to spend all this time together. And during season 3 and 4, I think maybe 3, he is shadowing directors on Discovery and shooting some of his own stuff. I think he shot some scenes with Mary, shadowing people like Jonathan Frakes and Tunde, just like these incredible directors. And he went to goddamn film school. Like, I didn't even know this, but like, he's a film guy. I have to completely out myself. Like, I love TV and movies and stuff, but I don't know anything about film. Like, I don't know how to make a picture look good. I can barely make myself look good on this webcam, not a movie. So it was just like, and so he has this, and I was very nervous to bring the script to him because I, of course, wanted to say yes, but I think it's just like such a great project for him to have all these people have, he's not coming in blind to this. He knows me and Mary and some of the other crew really well. And to kind of give him a calling card and say, look, like, this guy's a director, you know what I mean? And I just think I think people are going to see this. My hope is people are going to see this movie and be like, oh, he's a director. You know what I mean? And then he'll just start directing, and then he'll put me in his stuff. So,
absolutely. Especially he worked with Barb Burton and Robert Doug McNeil and Jonathan Frakes and Rosario Dawson. Let's add.
Yes, exactly.
Mix of
exactly. I love that. I know there is such this incredible legacy of actors to director pipeline in Trek, and it's tougher now because the whole system has changed since it was back in the aughts and the 90s. So to have that come out of this would be it'd be very special to me to, as we're going through Trek history, say he originally, tutored under Jonathan Frakes, and then he made this movie Type 1 before directing. You know what I mean? If I can get my little insert in there on Memory Alpha, I'll be happy.
Damn right. All right, so let's go back to, feels like eternity, but it was only 3 days ago when you launched the Kickstarter and exploded like a lightning. and you reach your goal in less than 24 hours.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dean,
Yeah.
we reached our initial goal in under 8 hours.
8 hours. So what went through your mind seeing this number, and it's not even a day?
I don't know. You know, honestly, I'm still in the middle of it. You know, it's still day 3, and I haven't really processed yet. You know, it hasn't really come completely, because I'm still like, you know, trying to move forward, but it's just been amazing. It's been gratifying, you know. It's just been a really special experience. And, you know, part of me is, of course, shocked and amazed, but another part of me is, in a good way, not surprised, because, you know, over the last 2 years since I was on Trek and have been, you know, inside because of COVID and spending a lot of time on the internet and getting to sort of meet and communicate with all these people and all these really cool communities, like,
oh yeah,
it's not a surprise to me that these amazing communities have showed up. And it just is such a reminder to me about how good community is, and how we all support each other, and how helping each other out really just is so amazing. So it's just been amazing. I don't even know. I'm still in shock. I don't know. Of course, the whole thing was that I started texting people and I said, oh shit, I didn't really think this through. I'm going to have to actually make this fucking movie now. Should have thought about that before I started.
Yeah, I know, especially in the world of Kickstarters, it could be hit or miss, but yours is a bona fide certified hit. And we're going to talk about one of the stretch goals later on, but right now, we're going to take you way back in a bit, because when I saw the video of you as, like me, a fellow attendee, and seeing that gradual transition to discovery, it's like, oh my gosh, that is me, because I went from a fan of myself to being in a fan film to being in audio series. So I want you to start talking about the earliest moments you found out about the Final Frontier. What is that first glimpse like?
You know, it's funny, Dean, I don't really remember a first glimpse, because I feel like it wasn't like, oh, now you're starting. It was like, this is on, you're doing this. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was just a part of what I did, you know, going to conventions. There wasn't really a conversation. Do you want to go? It was like, which friend do you want to invite, and are you ready to leave yet? You know what I mean? It wasn't like, what do you want to watch? It's like, we're watching Voyager, the end. You know what I mean? So I don't really have like a first moment. It's more just like, it was like sort of like a birthright. I think that it was just, you know, it was given to me, passed down from generation to generation.
That's great. And I believe it was your mother who introduced you to the convention.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Just like my mother. My mom took me to my very first convention, which is now 27 years ago.
Wow.
And I've been still going ever since.
You're hooked, man.
Especially this one this weekend.
I get it, dude. I get it.
So do you remember, as an attendee, who were your favorite guests to see?
Well, I loved seeing why am I blanking on the name? Hold on.
It's all right.
Hold on. Who's the doctor from Voyager? Remind me.
Robert Picardo.
Thank you. I love seeing Robert Picardo, whose name I do know, so nobody fucking tweeted me for that. I don't want to hear it. I love seeing Robert. He was just like, I remember we saw like him, and I want to say, I can't remember who it was with. I'm sure somebody can actually tweet at me and tell me that. But I'm sure that I saw him do like opera performance stuff in like the basement of a Hilton in Sacramento. And it was it's just so fun and over the top and goofy and exciting. You know, it was just, I just remember him like really vividly, because he just has such a big personality. And at these things, it's so fun when somebody really takes center stage and is just like all over the place in a really fun way. And of course, Frakes is amazing, and Patrick Stewart is amazing. I mean, everybody's amazing, you know. But I just really remember as a young kid, Robert Picardo really just sticking in my mind.
Yeah, I have a funny story about Robert Picardo when I first met him. He actually tried to buy my suit at the time, which I told him, no, I don't think it could fit you, but thanks for the offer. So
There you go.
so let me ask fan to fan, what is your favorite movie, series, and character aside from Discovery, of course?
Favorite movie,
Mm-hmm.
boy. Well, I do like. I have such bad taste in Star Trek. I know you're not allowed to have that, but I do. I
That's
do.
okay.
Here's the thing. I grew up in a very like strange. I grew up at a very strange time for Star Trek. Like I hit 11, 12, like peak sort of consuming TV,
Mm-hmm.
but not really in your control yet. You can say, I want to watch TV, but you still have to get approved of what you're watching. That was
Yes.
like, 10, 11, 12, 13. So
Mm-hmm.
like the movie that this is a wrong opinion, but the movie that I love the most because it was my peak childhood was Nemesis. So I
Okay.
love Nemesis. You know what I
Cool.
mean? I
Yeah.
shouldn't. It's wrong, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't stop me. And that also extends to Enterprise. Like that was the series that I grew up episode to episode with and sort of have the most sort of deepest, although I love them all, of course. It's not, but I have that sort of like, oh, I think this is my favorite one. I also love Enterprise because it's sort of like, it's all out there. The
Mm-hmm.
good, the bad, the ugly, the great, it's all there. You can't look away from, you can't really cherry pick. Like you can cherry pick Next Gen and say, these are the great episodes. We just don't talk about these 45 episodes. Nobody mentions, but you can't do that with
Mm-hmm.
Enterprise. So I love that about it. Favorite character is tough,
It is,
obviously
yeah.
Tilly's my favorite character of all time. Love,
Of
love Tilly,
course.
love Gilly. But outside of that, I really, this maybe isn't a childhood one because I don't think I grew up having, I did love Troy growing up
Mm-hmm.
because my mom was a therapist and then getting to meet Marina was very cool. So that's been great. But I do think like my current sort of go-to favorite is Shran, just because I got
Right.
so invested in him as I was sort of prepping for Rin
Mm-hmm.
on Discovery.
Well, that's a great segue to my next question. How did you prepare for the role of Rin? And then tell us about working with your wife, with David, with the stellar cast for season
Mm.
3.
Yeah, I basically just watched all of Shran. That's what I did, as prep. There's not really any, I watched the TOS episode with the sort of fake Andorian, but in terms of like prep, that's really what there was at the time, was just this performance. And so I just tried to watch it and think about it and think a lot about, so many of the other like Star Trek races, species, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clear what they are about.
Yeah.
What a Klingon's about. What the Vulcans are about, and I think a lot of that comes. They've been around forever, and it's in a good way, but like early Star Trek is so didactic. It's like it is this trait of humanity or whatever. But the Andorian thing is not really clear. You know what I mean? It's like, are they warriors? Are they like double crossers? Are they just like heroes? But that doesn't really work with Susie Platt. You know what I mean? You kind of, and so I thought a lot about it. And what I really thought was like, all right, well, actually we're sort of moved past every species race is didactic. It is this part of humanity. And really what I think is going on is like, there's something they present and then there's something they cover, right? So like Vulcans present logic, but they cover their crazy, whatever. Klingons present honor and bloodlust, but really they are like about, tradition and like doing the right thing or whatever. You know what I mean? And I felt like, when I say Andorians, what I am actually saying is just Jeffrey Combs. What he was doing was sort of putting out like this very cocky, sure-footed, badass front, covering like this really deep well of emotional sensitivity. Like it's he's so sensitive, he's so hurt, he's so wounded when that veneer drops as his arc sort of progresses. And so I sort of kept that in mind because I didn't really know Rin's arc. I didn't know what was going to happen to him. I didn't know if he was going to be in one episode. I mean, I knew he was going to die because I've watched enough Star Trek that I know when people are going to die, but I didn't know how long.
Yeah, I actually shed tears when he died, to be honest with you. I shed tears.
So did my mom. And so I just sort of kept that in mind as I was starting to build the character. And yeah, you know, on set, it was amazing. I got to do so many different amazing things, which is so rare for Star Trek to get to have a 3-episode arc. Usually it's like a 1-episode arc.
Yeah.
Especially in the newer stuff, you know, you're either there for a season or you're there for 2 seconds. So to get to do something in between was amazing. And I got to work with so many different people. You know, I got to do early stuff. It was just me and David, you know, and so it was so much fun and such a great bonding experience. And he's such an amazing guy and leader and actor, just a really incredible actor, to get to like have my first days on set with just him. And it was sort of his first time where he was the guy on set, you know, because they had shot in Iceland. And that was a very cool but very disjointed experience. But when he got back to here, you know, he had done some stuff already, but like this was these first days where there was nobody else from the cast there. This was like his time. And so it was great to sort of learn from him and watch how he led a show and led the extras and led the set. It was such an amazing learning experience. And he was so gracious about it. We just had a great time. And getting to work with Mary was incredible because we hadn't worked since Juilliard together.
Oh, wow.
And she just fucking was so good. You know what I mean? I was like, oh shit, you're really good at this. I walked in the first time and she was like so relaxed. It was totally her set, totally her thing. And I was like, I need to step up my fucking game right now. This is bad. She's stomping on me and it's embarrassing. But I loved it. And it was just an amazing, amazing experience. And I really couldn't have asked for anything more. And you know, obviously you want to live forever in everything you do, but that's not really how the world works. Nope. So considering what I got to do, I actually feel very lucky that I got to get in, have this amazing little story arc and get out before people got annoyed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is great because that means that I then get to go and hang out in the community without anybody being like, we didn't actually like you that much. You wore your welcome out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wound up sort of getting 2 full experiences, one on set and one off set as well, which has been amazing.
Well, that is great to hear. And speaking of you and Mary, how did you two celebrate your wedding anniversaries?
Well, she's working on a play right now in New York called At the Wedding at LCT3. And she's like the lead. She's on stage the entire time. So she's exhausted. So I bought her an at-home massage. I sat on the couch and relaxed, and she got a massage, and it was exactly what both of us needed.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. Now, we got to talk about this DiscoDoesDnD campaign. So you got to tell us all about it because it was part of stretch goal number 1. Yes. And now it's part of stretch goal number 2, which stretch goal number 1, for people who don't know, it was $43,000. It's gone. So it's now $65,000 goal. So tell us more about this campaign.
So, you know, we started playing D&D as a way to stay connected when we were shooting the pandemic because it was all pre-vaccine and we were super, and as trying to be as safe as possible. And we didn't spend any time in the same rooms together. So at this point in pandemic arc, we were sick of Zoom drinks. Nobody wanted to Zoom drink after a week of work.
Right.
So this became a way for us to hang out. And it was also a way for me to get to know Ian and Blue, who I hadn't really spent any time with, and who I now consider like really good friends, which has been amazing. And so, you know, Anthony would post these updates, just sort of writing out what happened at the campaign, and people got really invested in our little story. And we were all very invested in it. It was this really amazing place to sort of escape to. And people would always keep streaming it. When are you streaming it? Are you streaming it? Are you streaming it? And we were like, well, honestly, we don't want to stream this. We need this to be for us. But then, you know, in this off season, Blue really was like, I want to stream this GD game. And I was like, I mean, you don't have to tell me twice. So we got it up on Twitch and it's just been so much fun. We are doing almost like a sort of college campaign, which has been very fun, based off my original alma mater, UC Santa Cruz. I've renamed it Rio Del Mar, which has been really fun. And Ian never went to college and Blue went to theater college, so I'm trying to give them both the real, the classic college experience, which has been great. And yeah, so for the first stretch goal, basically, we're going to do a one-shot, like a one-off thing, where I'm going to basically put out a Google form and accept submissions about what people think this one shot should be. They can tell me who the monster should be, what the setting should be, what Anthony's character name should be. So it's just going to be absolute goofy madness. And I'm going to go through and pick like the best of the worst, I guess. Yep. And then we're going to try and make something out of it. And then for this stretch goal that's currently running, if we crack 65K, then we will, Anthony will DM a one shot for me and Blue and Ian and maybe a friend or two. And, that I'm really, really looking forward to that, because I played D&D with him sort of off stream in his home game where he DMs, and I've just been having so much fun. So I just really am excited for the community to get to see him go to work, which is going to be great.
Brilliant. Since I've never played D&D, what advice would you give me to start?
That's a great question. To start, I would say there's two things you can do. If you have a friend who's very into D&D, you can just say, I want to play. And I guarantee if that friend is very into D&D, they'll make it happen. Because it is this thing where it's almost like a start. It's like the goggles, the Wesley goggles, where he's putting the little spinny disc in the hoop. Where he's like, everybody just, you got to try this. So if you ask that, if you don't have a friend who's into it, I would suggest checking out a podcast or like a stream. Obviously Critical Role is a great thing. It's a little daunting at first, but if you can stick with it for a while, you'll get into it. But there's tons of other podcasts out there, and those will just they'll suck you in with the story, and then you'll start to pick up on how to play, and you'll start to try and figure it out, and suddenly you'll kind of understand it without even noticing.
Excellent. My last question to you is this. What would you say to your fans who not only supported your amazing career so far, but also Type 1, which still has 27 days to go for those who haven't donated yet?
Well, yeah, I would say a massive thank you. I'm just so grateful and feel really, I don't really take it lightly when people decide to give their money or even, share on their social media about something like this. That every single one, regardless of how much or how whatever, it just means a lot, because I just really get understanding, putting yourself out there and participating. And it's not just the money, it's also really participating in something meaningful. And so every one of those interactions reaffirms that this is something that is worth doing, So I would just say a huge thank you. And if you haven't donated yet and you're interested, check out the Kickstarter. You can find it all over the internet, wherever, and see if it speaks to you. And if it does, then throw some money. We have some cool rewards if you're interested in those. And if it doesn't speak to you, that's cool too. It will, though. That's my bet.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure we include the Kickstarter link on our, not only our video, but also our, oh my gosh, now I'm blanking. Our website. There we go.
Robert Picardo. There you go.
Robert Picardo. Where can people find you if they want to follow your career, your stellar career?
You can find me on Twitter at N_A_K. You can find me personally on Twitch. I'm the Type 1 Trekkie on Twitch. You can find DiscoDoesDnD, Disco_does_DnD on Twitch. That'll probably get you where you need to go.
This is Dean on the scene for the Rogers Revue. And if you like this interview and much more, check us out online at the Rogers Revue, review spelled REVS_Victor UE.com. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Rogers Revue, and check us out on YouTube at the Rogers Revue online. Until then, Dean on the scene, Dean Rogers, saying it's always see you out there.